What's up, everybody? It's Kratosis and Faded from NWGK, and we're going to be streaming Dune Awakening this Friday. So we wanted to do a little review of Force's 100-hour playtime on Dune Awakening to see what it's all about. You ready, Fade?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm trying to see if I want to pull the trigger. So
we got a couple members of the group who are on the fence about this game. So let's see what it's all about.
Beta for Dune Awakening has come to a close, and I played a whole heck of a lot of the game. All told, in fact, between the preview event last month and then this most recent beta weekend, I have now clocked around 100 hours in total with the game. I enjoy it. Anyways, the point is that they just, like, the world that they've built here, like, layered on top of, the Dune
badass.
IP. Like, that is
like
obviously
like displacement or something.
Thoroughly in here from what I gather, from what little I know from seeing the one movie. But it's just like, it's such an immersive space. And so I've really enjoyed it. Open, shared world where you're seeing other people, fully seamless, very immersive as a result of that lack of seams. Like, I'm pumped for launch and to play with my friends. I think this is gonna be a lot. Every game is more fun with friends, but I think this game in particular, with like a group of friends that I'm planning on playing with, I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I think we're gonna have a really good time. I think there'll be a lot of fun moments. Even if this game were worse than it is, okay, so just like assume things were even worse than they were, there are still so few games like this made that I would still probably want to play it. On the topic of PvP, that I do really wish they structured the PvP experiences prior to Endgame a bit differently than what they decided to implement, because as it is right now, I can tell you from my experience of playing for over 100 hours, I just feel like most people just won't encounter PvP at all prior to getting to the end game. So it's going to be predominant for most people. I really think it's going to be predominantly a PvE game for the first 150 to 100 hours. Maybe you get in a couple of PvP encounters, but that's a big maybe. And then they get to end game and all of a sudden it flips and the game is entirely PvP. I really wish they had found a better way to present it. Here's why. Yeah, no, so and you not experiencing PvP, that's another like gripe of mine, or just something that I wish were a little different. Because right now the PvP is exclusive to the shipwrecks, and there's one, I haven't revealed the map on this character yet, but there's one down here, and then there's two in the western and eastern Vermilius Gap, and it's exclusive to those areas. Prior to the Deep Desert, which is supposedly going to take somewhere between 50 and 100 hours before players can get to. Prior to that, you're only ever going to see PvP in these very confined areas, those shipwrecks. And so I think the result of that is probably you're just almost never going to see PvP. And I say that because we are currently playing in 3 of a total of 12.
How you feel about that? About like the PvP being confined, zoned PvP.
I mean, if the reward is good enough to go into those zones for, then yeah, sure. But what it's probably going to end up being, which is a numbers game again. It's going to be a clan of some 20, 30, 40 people who's going to kind of brigade and let the lower level people go in and get what they need. And anybody else, just going to have to eat something.
My only thing is this, right? When he says that it's kind of like it's confined to these zones, right? My thing is, I don't know if this is the reality, but it sounds like the zones are in the end game, and I wish that those zones were dispersed throughout. So like a level 5 shipwreck, a level 10 shipwreck, and so on. You feel what I'm saying? Like coming from like WoW and other like MMOs like that, I like the option to have PvP when I want. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's like level 5 and I have no gear, just kind of getting an idea of what the combat system is like. Do I like the PvP or not? What kind of attacks work? What kind of weapons work and things like that, right? So I hope that it's not confined to just in-game, because that means you're going to get to the in-game with no skill fighting against other players, right? Whereas you could be building that skill the whole time you're leveling all throughout the different zones and stuff. So that's my thought on it in terms of it being confined.
zones that are in Haga Basin. And that entire play space has a rough cap, they've said, of 40 people. Now, as is, even when everybody on the server is confined currently to just these 3 zones, as is, I've played like 100 hours and I've gone into shipwrecks probably over 100 times total. I've seen a person maybe twice. Like, it's just been a very rare occurrence. That has me wondering, man, once the game is fully unlocked and all 40 people on a server, you're never going to see anybody in a shipwreck. You're barely going to see anybody in the PvE. The point of that is, though, I feel like PvP is just never going to happen for most people prior to arriving in the deep desert, where then it becomes like PvP is mostly what you're doing. And I think that's kind of a shame. Like, I think, honestly, forget the shipwreck shit. What I probably would have liked is, so if we have like 12 zones in total, I would wish they almost did something like they did with the original Division, where you just have a zone or 2 that's just full PvP in those areas. If you want a PvP, you can go there. If you don't want a PvP, you can avoid it. But having it confined to the shipwrecks with how spread
you're pretty
out
much
everything
saying what
already
we
is, it
just said.
It seems like PvP is just not going to happen for a lot of people. One of the many issues with the combat system, the fact that it took a group of streamers at an event that was like promoted by Funcom, it took them no less than a few minutes of PvPing in this game for the very first time to find some major mechanical balance flaws. It's absolutely freaking hilarious, by the way. I mean, I feel bad for them, right, at the same time, but I don't know if any of you saw, they had that showcase.
Oh,
no. Oh, my God.
No.
And they paid, this was a sponsored showcase, so they paid these guys money to play the game, and like, the whole point was...
Oh, that's PvP, so you just... Oh, my goodness.
Like 15 minutes. I think it was even faster. I think it was almost immediately. You know, it's like Shroud and Summit and a bunch of other people.
Oh, God.
Within a very short period of time, everyone realized if they just kept spamming melee attacks, it was perma-stunning their targets. They were not running out of stamina themselves. Their targets were staying permanently drained, and so the PvP was just this.
You have got to be. Oh,
and
yuck.
unless a third party came and interrupted the person doing this slashing, the target of said slashing was just completely fucked. They couldn't do anything. They just sat there, kept getting staggered, kept getting staggered.
Yeah,
And this
so
was
they
their
didn't...
big event where they're like, hey guys, check
They
out
didn't concentrate on melee at all. Like,
oh, yeah.
they have to do something with that, because PvP is just going to be a wash.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, there's no counterplay. And, like, you can't just, oh, we're just going to make melee use stamina. Like, no, because that's boring, right?
That's a bad look right there.
Oh,
yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, again...
I don't think Rock would like that.
It doesn't turn me off, but it does make me think, okay, maybe the PvE aspect should be more focused at launch. That's how I'm taking it. But, yeah, man.
I hope that don't work like that in PvE, because I'm gonna be hard pressed not to do the same thing to a monster. Once
you find this out, though, if it's staggering your enemy and you know this shortcut or whatever, like how would you resist not doing it?
Yeah,
if
you're just making it harder for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they come up with something they can do to fix that. I will keep going. That's wild.
And it just looked like a total mess. They had addressed it too, like while this was all happening. They said, hey guys, look, we know this is a problem. We have it, it's already fixed in a current build. This build's a little older, which, you know, that is always technically true because they get build version updates constantly, daily, as far as I'm aware. Maybe
that could be capped though.
But...
All right, did they fix it? Did they not fix it?
Oh yeah, they better fix it.
So this is something folks gonna want to know.
In development progress, and they always ever push out the playable build is the one that's the currently most stable version. So I believe them that there's a more updated version because that's just how kind of things work in game development. Like I don't doubt that that's the fact. Yeah. But what I'm so
there's like a half truth
is we know that
why you feel like that's a half truth.
Like, oh yeah, this is not the latest version. Like technically, yeah, that's true. It's not latest version, but that's not to say that in the next version melee is fixed. And what do they mean by fixed? Like, what's something as big as melee that they could just turn on in the next patch?
So
that's my worry.
I'll tell you how I interpret that with my background in like development, right? One of the, like, maybe the viewers don't notice, but my background's in quality assurance, right? It's typical that whatever your most stable version is, like that's the version that these people are playing on, right? And then there's another, like you always have an active version that's like in test, So you might have, I mean, you could have any number of versions, to be honest. But it would not be unusual to have a live version, which is their most stable build, a version that's in test, right, actively being worked on by the quality team, and then a version that's like new features or like changes that dev is working on that's not ready to be tested, right? So they have
Yeah.
multiple versions just probably lined up. You know what I'm saying? And whatever the most pressing issues, those things are gonna go to the top of the to-do list, right? So if they're getting all this feedback that Melee sucks, right? I'm not saying they fixed it in the next version, but they will have made improvements to it in the next version, and they're going to iterate on that, right? So like what you mentioned earlier with like the stamina feature, right? I think that's like maybe like one quick fix. Like, okay, well, maybe if we add stamina, they can't spam the melee, right?
Yeah.
So now you're not staggered to death. But even then, that probably doesn't resolve all the issues with combat, right? But it's like a step in the right direction. And then you say, okay, well, now that they're not spamming you with melee, what else can we do to improve the combat, right? So that's how I think it's going to look.
That thing.
Right. So you're gonna start with the Band-Aid before you get that long fix, but sometimes I think a Band-Aid is better than nothing.
Yeah.
They are doing internal testing for this game, okay? Like there has been an ongoing closed test where they have full reign of the game in its current state, and they also have the end game, and they're testing the PvP. How at no point did anyone realize and express in that testing? I would understand if this was some strange interaction, if it was a combination of like a skill tree talent and gear, and then
I can answer this. I'm gonna tell you my experience as a QA person, right? Everybody don't have the confidence to say that, right? So sometimes like what you'll find from an internal tester that maybe isn't high up in the organization or whatever, they might be afraid to say, oh shit, like the combat sucks, right? Like they're just saying like they're testing to say, well, does the combat do what it's supposed to do? Can I melee? Can I shoot? Is the damage correct? You see what I'm saying? Like it's very kind of like analytical and you know,
Chat GPT.
Right, yes. but a good tester is going to think about the user experience, but I think that's what the external testers did, right? They don't have to care about what the boss thinks if they say something sucks, right? They're just going to say, hey, this melee sucks, right? So I think that's the difference between like bringing in people like Shroud and other people to play the game versus like their internal testers, but could be
some particular circumstances that resulted in a permastun. But the fact that the permastun came by simply spamming basic attack with a dagger, basic attack spam, like I don't understand. I don't understand how that did not surface and get addressed prior to.
I honestly think that's probably a thing too that they maybe assume like ain't nobody gonna just be sitting here fighting with a sword when you got a laser gun and a
man.
I'm saying like you got a laser gun and you got a rocket and you got all these other fancy sci-fi things.
Greasy, dog. I want to shank some stuff.
Maybe so.
Like that's the first thing I was about to do with it. Like if I got the game, I'd be trying to get a great sword or some laser katana or something.
That ain't what I'm thinking at all. But maybe so. Maybe some people's like, oh, I can't wait to stab somebody. I don't know. I'm out in space, so I'm trying to. I need a scientific. You know,
I'm somebody.
I'm trying to throw a dagger that come back. You know what I'm saying? Like something crazy.
That event. And you know, even assuming that they address this issue correctly in time prior to launch, and I will assume that they will. Even with that in mind, I still think that the end game PvP may very likely just evolve into the typical scenario that you see in these kind of games. I mean, if we're being perfectly honest, the Deep Desert is apparently going to be hundreds, upwards of a couple of thousand people. PvP will be a numbers game, like it almost always is in these games. The people who have, if you have 10 players and you're up against a group of 20 players, unless they have their monitors turned off, you're likely to lose. I mean, it's still a shooting game, right? So, like, getting headshots, you can certainly outplay people.
So, you know us, we're kind of diehard PvPers, right? So,
what
is that? Just making sure it's not sarcasm. Most of us in here, I think, minus drunk, I think most of us in here really like PvP. So I mean, like that's a sell for me, but I would still play it without the PvP aspect. I feel like if it's still the four of y'all in the world and y'all doing it co-op, I think it wouldn't be too much different from like how we play GTA, right? I still think the missions are fun and all of that, but I also think that PvP component can be fun, especially like launch week or launch weekend, right? Like it's gonna be crazy numbers of people on here, I would assume.
Yeah.
So so then
Depends
that
on how much
PvP
shit
part
you
is gonna be
lose.
even more fun, huh?
I said it depends on how much shit you lose when you die.
You know, that can be a turn off. Uh, but if you ain't got
Yeah.
nothing to lose, it don't matter. You feel me?
Oh yeah, for
Go
sure.
ahead and empty them pockets in some storage or something, and then
Yeah, you just find some draws and some rocks,
that's it. And
maybe
go
some
out there
twigs.
and ruin somebody else's day. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Also, because it's a shooting game, there's going to be a lot more higher probability that more people means performance is worse. There's more server issues, the more people in a space. And so maybe it doesn't matter how good at shooting you are if you have all sorts of, if you're at like 200 fucking ms or 300 ms latency, if they're having a bunch of server issues that make.
Now I'm gonna be honest. Like, it stands to be seen until we play this weekend, but server issues will kill any game.
Oh yeah,
That's
for
the
sure.
fastest death, right?
Oh, as soon
So
as I see a queue,
yeah,
refund.
queues, queues, lag, you
Yeah.
know, any of that.
Yeah,
So
nah.
I hope that they've learned in 2025 that you better put some money on your server infrastructure, especially if
Yeah.
you got a game that's got a decent amount of hype around it, right? Like you need to over engineer it or get more resources than you need because you already know people are gonna be piling on it. So we will see how that
Mhm.
launch go. I hope that ain't the case.
Boy.
Response time super long, the numbers will win again, and it doesn't matter how good your headshots are. Like, we'll just see. That's how it usually pans out. Maybe it doesn't pan out that way this time.
I think that's good on PvP. Let's kind of
Yeah.
I'm just gonna skip to the next section around IP strength and weakness, right?
Okay.
All right, so
Well,
let's check
I
out
don't
what
care about the IP,
you
so
don't care about the IP. All right, I'll keep that section quick then. Let's check. I'm gonna check out. I'm interested in the IP. I'm curious to see how it translates to the game. Let's see what he says about it real quick.
All right, next we've got the IP that this game is structured around. This is a Dune game, and that is both a pro in a lot of ways, but it's also a con in some of the limitations that it's going to present for this game. Honestly, probably one of my larger long-term concerns for this game is how strictly they're going to feel the need and or be required to stick to the Dune like lore accurate shit, because I think even just in enemy variety that could be a major thing that kind of holds the game back a little bit. And maybe that's just part of the reason that the end game is like entirely focused right now. There's no raids, right? It's all PvP. Like once you're done the survival crafting progression and you get to the current cap of the last tier of gear and whatever, you're PvPing. You're not like doing raids. You're not fighting giant monsters because it's Dune. Maybe eventually, I'm sure it's going to happen at some point, there will be a fight against a sandworm boss, but it's not happening.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. As somebody that's seen the movies, right? The sandworm is one of the big kind of monsters in the mythos. So fighting a sandworm or No Diddy riding a sandworm, right? Could
yeah.
be interesting. But I think they could introduce other animals or something like that. I don't think it all has to be player versus player. You could do player versus like giant NPCs or whatever, right? In the
Oh
environment.
yeah, I think that's the point. That's the point he's making, where it's just kind of like, why did they opt to do that? Like, in no game like this is PvP ever like the end game like that I can think of. Like, there's usually like I mean, yeah, PvP is like the end game, quote
Yeah,
unquote. Don't
yeah.
get me wrong, but like, there's usually a raid or some kind of big, thing you do before you do said end game,
Right.
right? Because you beat the game or whatever.
I feel like you normally have like an in-game PvE faction or line or questing and things you could do, and there's an in-game PvP
Yeah,
faction. That's how WoW's done it traditionally, and
yeah.
I like it that way, being able to choose between the two. But
Yeah,
But yeah,
and yeah,
with
they're
the
pretty
IP
limited because it's
thing,
Dune. They're pretty
yeah,
limited
it's
in
Doom.
like what it is
Yeah.
you're fighting. So maybe for that reason, it will never really be more than just a PvP focused game at the end. Because what else can they?
Dune has a lot of worlds in it too, though. They could literally fly us to another planet and introduce completely new species, all of those things, right? So Dune
Oh,
is
okay.
like a space fantasy series, right? So it's nothing stopping them from taking us completely different places, but.
They can't, like, they're not monsters. Like, we're always fighting humanoids, right? And I think we're always going to be fighting humanoids. I don't think we will ever not be fighting humanoids, barring maybe we get like a raid against a sandworm one day. It's only going to get so diverse in terms of the types of enemies and the types of encounters you'll see. Maybe with machinery and some Bene Gesserit bullshit, because it's kind of like magic. Maybe they can pull in some more interesting stuff with those elements. Although, I played
All right, so let me catch you up for the people that ain't seen the movie, right? The Bene Gesserit is kind of like magic. They basically can do like hypnosis or like when they speak to you, Tim, they can control you. So that's kind of like their magical ability. And
Okay.
then
Well, that wouldn't be fair.
yeah, I don't know how that translates. And then but then there's a couple other races. They are mostly humanoid though. But
Yeah.
there are other humanoid races that don't look just like this. Um, and I think that could be interesting. So I think I disagree with him a little bit. I do think there are other humanoid races and there's other like animal like and creature races that I think could be introduced to give diversity, but it just depends, like he said earlier, like how much leeway is the studio, like the people that own the IP giving them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, despite the fact that I do like this game overall, like I said, there are a lot of issues. So let's begin by
Forrest,
addressing
let's hit
some of
the
those.
issues, my boy.
For starters, there's
Okay.
one of the biggest ones that stick out the most, and that is the combat. Combat any better?
Oh,
It
Lord.
seems clunky still. I mean, it's not changed dramatically since the last time it's not changed dramatically, and I doubt it will change dramatically. The
shooting
combat's
looks good.
biggest issue is definitely the melee. That's the worst part
Melee.
about it.
Oh
Okay.
I think the
man.
shooting feels fine, like serviceable fine. Not the best shooting in the
I like
world,
melee.
but also third-person shooters rarely do have the best feeling, like comparatively anyways, like compared to first-person shooters, like third-person always tends to feel a little more floaty. But I think it feels fine in this game. Like there's some decent sounds associated with it, so that gives it a little bit of feedback.
Yeah.
But yeah, the melee's pretty rough. The melee is not great.
So is the melee being asked like a turnoff for you?
Yeah, I like melee. I like combos, and I feel like melee in shooters is a good way to
Outplay or something?
get rid of some of the monotony,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you always shooting, you always using the same gun because you're gonna get a best gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure you're gonna want to find different types of melee weapons to maybe freshen that up. Maybe some guy he's strong and you gotta kill him with melee.
It
Maybe some
makes
guy
me
he flying,
question. It makes me question if I would want to avoid the PvP aspect if the melee is jank.
Oh yeah, it's just a shooter at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think part
Maybe
of
it's
the
a
reason
jank in a good way
is
though.
them trying
For
to do
melee.
this whole heavy attacks are replaced with slow attacks because that's how you bypass shields in the Dune universe. So I like get that thematically that's what they went with, but it's also like a
All right, so let me give you a little backstory from the movie because you said you have or you haven't seen this movie.
Have not.
Okay, so one of the things in the Dune universe is it's pretty commonplace for like main characters to have what like this. What they call it in the movie is kind of like a kinetic shield. So what it is it doesn't make you impervious. It will prevent anything from high kinetic energy with high kinetic energy harming you. So if someone was to shoot
Yeah.
a bullet or anything that's moving really fast, it'll block that. But that's why a lot of the characters will have swords and things like that. So when they got close on you, right, and they're trying to stab you or shank you or something like that, like it would go through the shield. So the shield, that's kind of how the shields worked in Dune. So he's saying it sounds like there's some strategic aspect that's built into the game where it works similarly, right? If you get on someone that has high shielding, you can fight them through that shielding in close range with melee. So that may suck if the melee's janky there, but hopefully that's something they fix.
Yeah. I'm curious to see why he says the melee is jank. You know,
If he
is
gives
it
more specifics.
because if he gets more specifics.
All right, let's start that thing back.
slow attack doesn't really feel oomphy because it's not oomphy. It's a slow attack. It's slow, like I don't know, yeah, but yeah, melee combat's pretty rough. Not
I
great.
like how he's
Do
moving
you agree
across the
that
map
it looks
too.
clunkier than it feels?
Yeah.
No, I would say that the melee. I don't think it's not that the melee feels clunky necessarily. It just doesn't feel impactful. The soft lock-on that the game does, like your character will auto-face a melee target.
Oh shit!
For this blocking parry thing. That's a little weird. I think they would actually go a long way if they had a hard lock on, like a toggle. Like if you hit middle mouse button, you could dead center lock, like, you know, like action games, like Souls games. I think that would actually help it feel a little better, or at least it would feel less loose and floaty. Like it would feel like you would have more control. Because yeah, there is like a magnetism when you're in melee, when you're engaged with an enemy in melee. There's like a magnetism to you and the person facing you. And it's also weird because of how they have the whole parry system. Like you saw, like me and that guy were standing next to each other for like 3 or 4 seconds, and he was just looking at me and not doing anything. But that's because they're trying to allow you to parry so you can do the whole bypass shield thing. But it looks dumb. Like, like we're both just standing there. I'm facing the opposite direction. He's just standing next to me with.
I did notice that. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I noticed that too. I was like, what's going on?
I didn't know
He
why.
like charged in and then like stopped.
Yes. Yeah, that's awkward. Very awkward.
Yeah, maybe. See, that's more AI jank rather than melee jank though.
Yeah.
Like that's not gonna work the same way in PvP. Like after I do a teleport move, I'm pretty sure I'm going to land a hit. But then again, it's kind of like I'm getting a little bit deep here with as far as like fighting. But like after he teleported in, right, most people would expect you to like instantly attack after you teleport. Because you know it's not like that mind game. So that could have been why he
delayed
stood there for a second. But I don't know. You know, he says it's jank, but that's just like how a real life PvP situation would work, right?
I couldn't
like
tell. Go ahead, finish that thought. My bad.
Yeah. Like if in a fighting game, right? If somebody teleports into you real fast, right? Your brain thinks they're about to instantly attack you, so you might throw out your counter, but they just stop and stay there. So they baited your counter and then counter attack that counter, right? I don't know if that's the AI coded in the game like that, or that was just a situation that he like he says is jank. So who knows?
My thought is I couldn't tell if that was a real player or NPC. If it's an NPC and it had a delay like that, I guess it would not bother me as much as if it was a real player, right? Like if a real player had a delay like that, it would feel weird. I guess like the NPC, like giving you time to react, maybe it wouldn't bother me as much. So I don't know. It's stands to be seen.
I mean, it depends on if the NPC has a counter attack too. Like what if as soon as why didn't he attack as soon as that guy ran up, right?
Could he or not? You know,
I think I'm pretty sure he could have. Like he just kind of waited there, like for him to attack so that he could show the counter attack. That didn't show that the combat was jank. That just showed that that's what happens in any game. If you like in Dark Souls, if you walk up to a dude and just wait, he gonna attack you. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right.
More.
All right. Now, with all of that in mind, with all of that said, all of those cons thoroughly discussed, I still enjoy the game. I still really had a fun time. I played for 100 hours, and I'm still very much so excited and looking forward to launch. So why is that? Well, I think one of the first things I want to talk about is the fact that even though melee combat is lackluster and the shooting is just like average, I would say. It's decent. I will say that as you progress and as you start to unlock things, more weapons, different weapons, additional movement skills, and different offensive skills, active abilities, the overall combat flow goes from feeling like really weak to actually being quite enjoyable. Here's what I mean. There's normally people down here unless another player's cleared it. No, it doesn't look like it.
What is that purple thing? Oh shit! Okay, it's some kind of drone.
It's a turret. Yeah.
Oh shit.
Anyone else? Just this guy? Yeah, so like that little segment there, that little process of coming in and clearing out these 5 or 6 enemies, that is the part of the combat that I really enjoy. Like when you get in these engagements and you're using multiple tools and you're positioning, your line of sighting,
I think that looks solid,
and kind of hobbling around and throwing a grenade, or in my case, the seeker missile, like that.
I'm not impressed.
It's just like the whole one-on-one melee.
Why not?
I mean, it looked like there's got to be like double the amount of enemies because I just felt like he just had the easiest time in the world. He ain't even get shot. I don't think.
I will say this: the enemy density could be higher. I feel like it's a little bit low for one person, but that would be completely unacceptable with a squad of 4.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I
With the
want to feel
squad of
like I'm
4,
doing
they
something.
gotta like
Like,
what
it's a
5
turret.
times that.
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, I mean it's got to at least be 2 people per person that you know, or at least 3 people per person to kill. Like if it's a group of 4, at least about 12 to 20 people
My
in a room.
only exception to that would be if the enemies are like mentally engaging, like if they have unique mechanics
Oh
that you
yeah,
have to
mechanics and
strategize
stuff.
around.
Yeah.
But if they just
solid.
you know, I don't know, the old school, they just shoot at you and they die, then that wouldn't be too
Yeah, I'm not
exciting.
impressed. And then I don't see where I
I
don't
mean,
see the AI taking cover. Like there's no cover mechanic.
Like double
So
the
you,
amount of enemies.
your cover is just you moving behind something. But the AI,
I will say
in order
this,
for it
the
to, I
enemy
think,
density could be higher.
do
I
that,
feel
it would
like
have
it's
to
a
have a
little
function.
bit
So I don't
low
think
for
our
one
AI is
person,
going to
but
actively try
that would be
to
completely unacceptable
not
with a
take
squad of
damage
4.
from you.
I think
Oh,
that's
yeah, for
one of the
sure.
positives
Like,
I think
I
about
wanna feel like
GTA
I'm
because
doing
it
something.
extends the fight, right?
5 times
So a
that.
fight that's relatively simplistic can be extended
Yeah, I mean,
because
it's
the
gotta
AI
at
is
least
taking
be
cover, so it makes the shots more
2
difficult.
people per person that
Yeah,
you
I
know,
can see that.
or at least 3 people
Like
per person to
combat
kill.
that's
Like
pretty
if it's a group of 4,
janky. Like
at
that's
least
what most people are complaining
12
about,
to
and I
20
think rightfully
people.
so.
My
Because
only,
the game starts
my
you out
only
with just
exception
that,
to
and
that
it's
would
kind of
be
it kind of
if
feels kind of lame.
the
But it gets a lot
enemies are,
better,
like,
and then you add in like the
mentally engaging,
movement
like if
with
they have
you
unique
once you get the Shigawari
mechanics
cable
that you
plus
have
the
to
dispenser
strategize
belt, and you can kind
around.
of be zipping around
But-
levels and
but if
shit
they
on top
just,
of all that. There are points in
I
which
don't
the
know, the
combat
old
starts to
school,
click
they
a
just
bit
shoot at
more,
you
but it just starts out
they
like
die,
abysmally
then that
slow,
wouldn't be
and that
Yeah.
plus the fact that the
exciting.
combat
And
has like
then
0
I don't
impact
see
to it. Yeah, I mean,
where
it's not great.
I don't
I
see
mentioned the movement though
the
as something I
AI
thought was interesting.
taking cover. Like there's no cover mechanic.
how
I
you
mean,
move
all
around
they
the
got
map.
is
But coming
the
in and clearing
your
out
the
rooms
belt.
like this,
I mean, I don't see a
like,
double jump.
So he has some kind of
Or-
grappling
but
hook,
the
and then he
AI,
has some way
in order
to
for it to I
jump
think,
higher and to slow his
do
descent.
that, it would have to have a function. So I don't think
You know what I mean?
AI
Like
is
whatever
gonna
this blue
actively
aura.
try to
I don't know if it's the
not
aura
take
that's
damage
doing
from
it, but essentially he had some kind of hyper jump, and he could dampen his fall. So I think that's like if he was on a high cliff or something, he could probably just jump off and not die. Right? If he has whatever this is,
Yeah.
the grappling hook or the slow descent. All right.
Good. That timing was perfect with that nade popping off. There's someone else? Not anymore. Also in the
My
pros,
NPC
sort
ain't
of
even shooting.
similar to the combat conversation, is the movement. Like after the first few hours, once you progress and unlock more things, the movement goes from feeling kind of crappy to all of a sudden feeling pretty good. It flips on its head. All of a sudden, the movement in this game, all it takes is the Shigawari cable and a suspensor belt, and then all of a sudden this game has like amazing movement. It's so funny because I think most people who probably played the beta weekend never got to this point. I feel like they should give this to you within the first hour. I feel like they should present you with this setup because moving around the environment becomes so much more enjoyable and interesting once you have these two. And the game uses momentum as well. So if you get if you get like a big speed boost and get a lot of momentum going, you can just go fucking flying. Like you can soar. It's absolutely ridiculous at times. It's really fun. The movement in this game goes from feeling like shit to feeling awesome once you get this.
Okay. Man, that must slow.
What they call it basically like a snowmobile, right? But it's like a sand mobile.
Yeah.
That's
And
kind of
it's
fresh. Right?
a slow mobile.
Why you say slow?
68 kilometers an hour, bruh. Come on now.
Yeah, I'm from the U.S., man. I can't do that conversion.
That's like 30 or something, 30 or 40 or something like that.
Oh, okay. So
It's not very fast. It's not very fast.
You
at
being
all.
the racer in the group, yeah. That's gonna be an issue for you.
68 kilometers per hour to miles per hour. 42.
42.
Yeah.
Not
All
very
right.
impressive.
Yeah, about 40. Yeah,
But
not at
see,
all.
you see, he's also got to manage the temp though, because he own Arrakis and it's hot. So see, that thing will
See,
overheat. But it's nighttime right now, so he probably like,
okay.
yeah, you got to manage that temperature on Arrakis. You feel me?
Oh, great.
Yeah. This is probably nighttime driving only. Would be my thought.
Mm.
Or you
Or
got
else it blow up and you got to build another one.
that, or you got to drive from shady place to shady place. You feel me? Like real
Yeah,
quick.
I see he got some gas over there.
Where the gas at? The tank right here. What you talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Oh,
the gas
okay.
tank. Damn, the acceleration is garbage. Well, that thing I got no horsepower, no torque. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of mounts. I'd rather, I mean, for what the game is, right? If you're like in a olden days type game, of course, horse mount. But if you're like in a more magical oriented game, uh, I would prefer the character have the movement abilities, whether that be jumping, some kind of blinking, some kind of momentum based movement like this game. That's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
like that. Like I would rather do the grappling hook belt tech rather than drive that car in the game, even if it was faster.
So I feel that, and I think the thing I would add to that, right, is like for me with mounts, because people get really up in arms about mounts, right? My thing is it is it built into the game? Is it like an element of the game, right? Because sometimes I think they put mounts in when they shouldn't be in just to appease people, right? If it's a story element to it, if it has a practical reason for existing in the game, cool, right? When I play Red Dead Redemption, okay, it makes sense to have a horse. It makes sense to have a buggy. You feel me? But
Mm-hmm.
but I don't need a horse and buggy in this game. It does not make sense for it to be a horse here in the middle of the desert, right? Maybe a camel. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. But my point is factor that into your element and also scale the game based on that, right? So if I'm moving
Yeah,
twice as fast on a horse, right, I need the map to be twice as large than if I'm on foot. You feel me? I feel like a lot of games don't.
not necessarily.
Go ahead, say more.
Just because, like with Grand Theft Auto, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of the cars in the game max speed is like 120,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like I know what you're saying, but just straight up doing it like times two,
Yeah.
like based off what the speed is not the way to do it.
I
That's all
certainly
I was
don't
saying.
mean that in a literal sense, but I'm saying there has
Yeah.
to be scale, right? Because let's be
Oh yeah,
clear,
for sure.
GTA 5 has scale. It's a very large map. Like you feel like you drive for 5 or 10 minutes to get from one side to the other. You feel me? So that's all
Yeah.
I'm saying is scale. I think sometimes like when I think back to like the early WoW days, having a 200% mount, you were traversing between zones too fast. Like it's clear that it was not designed for you to traverse between zones that fast when they started adding mounts to some of these old areas and things like that. You feel what I'm saying? But like later when they
Yeah.
added like dragon riding and stuff like that, it made way more sense.
Right. If memory serves, I'm pretty certain initially their plan was to release an early access, but then they opted out of it. I'm pretty sure that it was originally supposed to be early access, though. So maybe if the franchise saw, like, they didn't like the typical association with early access games. But I don't know if that's,
I
like, if the game's
mean,
unfinished, you should just...
You got some thoughts about what?
yeah, like they're gonna do the same thing. It's just gonna be like I'm sure it's gonna come out in a status where it's like this could be an early access game, and they're just gonna live service fix it up.
I think it's a little bit of a catch-22, right? Like I agree with him that there's early access these days has a bit of a negative connotation, right? I think there's an argument as a company to not even say it. Even if the game
Yeah,
still is in an early access state, just not calling it early access is going to benefit you.
yeah, I feel like it's a gray area. Like that whole early access thing is definitely a gray area for companies. I feel like it's BS for gamers, but it is what it is.
I'm going to shout out
That's another
Satisfactory on this one
conversation.
because Satisfactory is one of the few games I played where I thought man, this is the highest quality early access experience I've ever had. And if you're doing it like that, where you polishing as opposed to like finishing the game, then I think it's fine. So polish versus finish is a very different thing. When I pay you money, I expect finish. Do I expect everything to be polished? Okay, cool. We can work on that.
I feel like there should be more of a time leeway for refund with the early access to incentivize these developers from not taking vacations after they even got a windfall.
I can see that.
Like, congratulations, your game got a lot of sales, but don't stop.
Yeah. Yeah. The example of that would be what was that mech game we played? You know, it's about like it was a 4-player co-op. Everybody was in a mech. Anthem.
Oh, I never played that
You didn't
game.
play Anthem? Oh,
No, I didn't play it.
The idea of it was amazing, right? They definitely went on vacation when they put that thing in early access. No more content, completely unfinished. The game died. But you could look it up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard about it. But,
Yeah. What do you think about the
They pushed
graphics?
it back slightly, so we'll see how much of a difference that makes.
I mean, like the graphics seem okay, but like I know it's Dune, so it's sand. Like there's a lot of sand color, everything.
So you feel like it's kind of washed out?
I mean, a bit.
That's fair. I didn't think about the washed out part. I think that's a good because, you know, I like the aesthetic of the movie and the washed out and all the different brown tones didn't bother me as much. Like I like the sci-fi aspect of it. I like just a minute ago when we were watching this fabricator run, like just how it was kind of inhaling and exhaling. I don't really know how to explain it, but
Yeah.
that little bit of motion to it, like I thought that looked cool. So overall, I like the aesthetic of it.
I said the atmosphere is so awesome, bro. Like, I mean,
You don't think so?
it's just brown, and you're in a cave, and it's sand. Like, it's not so. Like, I'm not trying to be negative. Once again, it's not so awesome. If you play Expedition 33 and you see the changes in their environments, like that's awesome. This is just bland at best.
So
Like it's
here's the thing
sand.
that's hilarious, right? On one hand, I agree with you when you say that. On the other hand, I find it shocking that Force has this perspective, not loving the IP, right? So I'm actually leaning more on his side because I like the IP, right? But at the same time, I respect what you're saying in the sense that, yes, it is all brown, but so is Arrakis. It's the entire planet is a desert planet, right? So, you know, yeah, but I feel where you're coming from on that.
The survival
Maybe
and
awesome
leadership
isn't the right word,
aspects of it.
and I'm curious if
And-
that'll make you change your mind at all. Go ahead.
And not be orange.
What's the is that the turn off for you? Do you feel like is it just simply you want more or some other diverse zones and then you would be in, or is it just the whole
No, the
gameplay
combat. The whole combat. I mean, I like. Don't get me wrong. I like a survival game, but combat is a real big for me. And if the combat's not good, then I'm not having a good time. Like with the guns, right? I see that the guns don't have any attachments on them, or if they have attachments, then it's like strictly stat based.
Okay.
So it's like you're not looking through any kind of different scopes. Like I'm excited, like Borderlands, I'm excited for that because that's a looter shooter. It doesn't have to be open world or whatever, but like their guns are cool. The combat is cool.
Did
Like-
you did you play Hogwarts Legacy?
No.
You didn't. Okay. Yeah, I as an avid moviegoer, right? I think there's a lot to be said for immersive games that like take you into a fantasy world, right?
Yeah, for
Hogwarts
sure.
Legacy is an example. This is an example. So I do think there is a market for that, just that alone. And if the experience is immersive enough and like kind of like a sim of that world enough, there are people that are gonna like it solely for that, nothing else, right?
Oh yeah, for
So
sure.
that's definitely the court that I fall in, and I'm some of the other concerns that he has are less important to me because I would play this game solo just for like the kind of story, the exploring the Dune world further.
Yeah.
And over the course of all of this time that I've spent playing the game, one memory keeps cropping up for me, and that is my time and experience with The Division. There are elements of playing this game that really, really remind me of that experience, about the parts of that game that I really liked. It reminds me a lot, the experience of playing it, not necessarily the exact elements of the game, but the totality of the experience of playing it reminds me a lot of what I enjoyed about The Division, the first game. There's a chance if you liked that game that there are elements of this that you would also like similarly. And
How you feel about that?
Once again, we'll see. Just kind of, yeah. I
Go
just
ahead.
wanna. I'm ready to see. I just want to see more of what he got to say about
I
it
feel
because
like
I'm sure
the
there's more.
Division comparison is a positive for me.
Okay.
For me.
Yeah, it's not a
And
negative at
specifically, I'm
all.
talking like it's a third-person shooter at its core. It's a looter shooter in a lot of ways. It's got those light
Yeah.
MMO elements where you will see other players running around. But then they also have the level of survival mechanics on top, crafting and building bases and shit, which is cool. And actually, it's funny because I was thinking about this as well because I kept drawing the Division comparison. And then I was like, well, how is melee in Division? It fucking didn't exist, dude. You like elbowed people. Like the melee in Division was dog shit. It's literally just like you have your gun and then you just elbow people. Like that's all. That's the extent of it. But you know, despite my love for Division, I know it's not like the biggest franchise, so I certainly didn't click with everybody. But I fucking loved it. And one of the things that this game definitely does the best, like without question, I cannot knock them at all for this. It is the world building and the immersion, building upon that Dune IP, which I personally have no pre-existing love for, but how they presented this world and the structures and the things that they've done within it, it's just so immersive. I love spending time in this game. Atmosphere's through the roof, like it's super atmospheric, especially at night. You got those ships coming by, you got the fucking sandworm like chasing people, erupting from the dunes.
I mean, once again, I haven't seen anything that's just like, oh wow, to me in the game, like as it is now. Like nothing that's just like I've seen some combination of everything that's been displayed to me in a certain game at some point.
So here's what.
So it's not
Sorry, finish that. Finish it.
impressive by itself.
So what I would say to that is this, right? Do not underestimate the value of a reskin. That's Overwatch 2 versus Marvel Rivals. And all you have there is really a reskin. It's some actual play components, right? But I think mostly it's a reskin. People are excited about
Mhm.
playing with characters and IP they're familiar with, right? So even if this is just the Division and it's reskinned as Dune, that could have a significant impact on how the game feels, how it plays, like what
Mm,
people think of it, right?
okay.
So that's how I look at it. So I don't underestimate that. Yeah, it might not be anything new. Maybe it is just the Division 2 with the Dune skin on it. But Dune is a very popular franchise around the world. If you're into sci-fi, into things like that, I think that's a positive, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
True.
so personally, it doesn't bother me that it's not brand new. I'm excited to just play in this world with familiar mechanics.
Okay. True.
And that's one of the other things too, is like some people, like you'll get comments like, this game is bad for this, and this reason. And like I can see that list and I can acknowledge that list and I can agree with
Not the way I would want to end my review. If I was him, I feel like that's very subjective. I feel like, you know, a lot of the other things he was talking about in terms of fight mechanics were very objective, right? Like you could look and say, okay, well, I can see that's weird. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or like I saw that lag or whatever, right? It was a good time. Remains to be seen for each of us, right? So,
Hmm.
but if that's kind of the summary of it all, was I had a good time. I think that matters if your game taste align with forces. And I feel like a lot of times I like a lot of the games he recommends, but just kind of a thought.
Sure, I hope so after 100 hours.
list, not even just like
You don't get to
tacitly say,
100
like, oh, yeah,
hours
sure,
without
yeah, I
having a
get
good
it.
time.
I could be like, no, yeah, that's right. So then why are you playing it? I have fun while I'm playing it.
I think you have it right there, though, man. I think that's really kind of the short and sweet summary, right?
Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the vid, and that does it for today. I'll see you all in the next one, all right?
So I just want to we could just do our own little closing, right? What's your verdict, your final verdict?
Yeah, my final verdict. It's a no for me. The reason being, I just didn't see anything that just really leaped out to me. Maybe if I was a bigger moviegoer, like you said, or a Dune fan, I'd have something to latch on to. But I don't have that, so it's unfortunate that that is one of its biggest draws, I guess. But it's what it is.
It's gonna be a yes for me. I think we reviewed Force's reaction to it. He's put in 100 hours or whatever. It gave me just enough hope, but not quite enough for Fade. I think for the viewers that are watching, if they're curious, they should pull up Thursday or Friday, and we'll check out Dune Awakening. All right, thanks everybody.
Minus fade.